Imagine padding your resume by, like, claiming your wealthy uncle's bank account is your actual salary.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds like straight up fraud.
Right. But right now, that exact accounting trick is responsible for about 71% of Alphabet's recent quarterly profits.
That is wild. I mean, you look at the surface and you see this booming tech giant, but
But you peel back the label and you find this massive, completely unrealized paper illusion.
it really forces you to question, every metric we use to measure success. Because when the surface narrative is that disconnected from the actual mechanics, standard labels are kind of useless.
Exactly, which is exactly why you are here with us for this deep dive into the source material. If you're listening to this, you're obviously trying to get past the daily information overload.
Right, you want to know what's actually driving the numbers, the laws, the headlines.
Yeah, so our mission today is to really explore that gap, the gap between the surface story and the hidden mechanisms that are actually dictating global events. We've got a stack of sources today that reveals a world run entirely by loopholes, paper realities, and buried secrets.
And the material we're pulling from covers a massive spectrum. I mean, we're looking at deep financial analysis from the Wall Street Journal, consumer spending data from Reuters.
We've got international trade reports involving the White House, too.
Right, plus federal court filings out of Texas and legal news surrounding ongoing lawsuits against the Department of Justice. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And before we dive into the weeds, I want to make one thing crystal clear to you listening.
Yeah.
Some of the source material we're unpacking today touches on incredibly charged political topics,
Oh, yeah.
from federal lawsuits and presidential spending to gun control legislation. So neither of us is taking a political side here. We are not endorsing any specific viewpoints.
Not at all.
Our job is strictly to impartially report the facts, the data, and the ideas contained in these original source documents.
Right.
That way you can draw your own conclusions based on the actual mechanics at play.
Exactly. We're dissecting the engine, not arguing about where the car should be driven.
I love that. Let's start with that engine, specifically the illusion of numbers in big tech. Because that Wall Street Journal analysis blew my mind.
Oh, the profit numbers. Yeah.
When I read that $121 billion in recent big tech profits are just paper gains, I literally had to stop and reread the paragraph.
Yeah.
Walk me through the actual mechanics of this. How does a company claim billions in profit without selling a single product?
It comes down to, well, a very specific set of accounting rules regarding investments. These tech giants, Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, they have massive venture capital arms.
Right.
So they invest heavily in other companies. Alphabet, for instance, has huge stakes in SpaceX and the AI company Anthropic.
Okay, makes sense.
Under current accounting standards, when the estimated value of those outside companies goes up, Alphabet is required to record that increase in value as a profit on their own income statement for that quarter.
Wait, so they haven't actually cashed out? They haven't sold this stock?
Yeah, none at all.
They're literally just looking at their portfolio, seeing that the line went up, and claiming it as income.
Exactly. And the sheer scale of those numbers is what distorts the entire market. I mean, the sources note that these one-time, completely unrealized gains accounted for 71% of Alphabet's quarterly profits.
That is insane.
And 66% of Amazon's. So when you, the listener, look at the health of your 401k or the overall S&P 500 earnings, you might see what looks like just unstoppable corporate growth.
Right, but those earnings are essentially inflated by unrealized gains. So if the market turns or, an AI bubble bursts, those gains just vanish overnight because the cash was never actually in the bank to begin with.
Bingo. It's a paper reality.
The wildest part to me isn't even that the accounting rules allow this. It's how inconsistently Wall Street applies the rules.
Oh, you mean the NVIDIA comparison?
Yeah. The journal piece points out that NVIDIA, which is arguably the hottest company on the planet right now, actually tells analysts to exclude these unrealized investment gains when evaluating their performance.
Which is really telling.
They specifically want to be judged on their core business of selling chips. I actually wrote down a quote from Jonathan Weil in the journal piece. He wrote, "Counting gains in volatile equities when they go up while subtracting everyday operating costs isn't analysis, It's marketing.
Yeah, that sums it up perfectly.
Mm,
When Wall Street starts valuing these basically lottery tickets as if they are recurring revenue, it completely masks the underlying health of the core business.
right.
It creates this dangerous environment where bubbles get dressed up as, solid, sustainable business models.
So Wall Street is essentially hallucinating wealth.
Pretty much.
But when you step off Wall Street and look at Main Street, you can't hallucinate your grocery bill. The American consumer's reality is looking very different right now.
Yeah, that artificial financial boost the consumer has been riding, it's officially over.
Yeah.
According to Commerce Department data reported by Reuters, U.S. retail sales fell 0.6% in July.
Wow.
And that marks the first monthly decline we've seen in 9 months. The consumer's wallet is where this reality check is finally cashing.
A drop after 9 months of straight spending. But
Yeah.
why July specifically? Did everyone just suddenly run out of money on July 1st?
Well, the data points to a convergence of 3 specific mechanisms. First, the generous tax refunds that people got earlier in the year, those have dried up.
Okay, so the refund check padding is gone.
Right. Second, we actually saw weaker gasoline prices in July. That reduced service station receipts, which mechanically pulls down the overall retail revenue number.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have thought of gas prices pulling the retail number down.
Yeah, it's a quirk in the data. And third, there was a major timing shift in the retail calendar. Amazon moved its massive Prime Day event into June this year.
Oh, so that pulled all that consumer spending forward. then.
Exactly, leaving July looking completely empty by comparison.
If you're listening to this and wondering where your money went, the data shows people are shifting how they spend too. The biggest declines were in online retail, auto dealers, and electronics.
But restaurant spending continued to rise.
Right. People are still buying experiences. They're just dropping the physical goods. But let me push back on the broader narrative here for a second.
Sure.
Every time retail drops 0.5%, the headlines scream that the sky is falling. But if people are just acting like it's their own money again, instead of Uncle Sam's refund check, isn't this just a return to a normal baseline? Isn't that stabilization rather than an economic collapse?
The economists cited in the sources are echoing that exact sentiment. The economy isn't falling apart. The consumer is just showing fatigue and becoming highly deliberate with their spending.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Sal Guattieri, he's a senior economist at BMO Capital Markets, points out that this slowdown is actually the critical missing puzzle piece.
How so?
Well, when you combine this retail slowdown with the recent weaker jobs report and subdued core CPI inflation, it points to a material cooling off of the broader economy.
Which is the exact mechanism the Federal Reserve has been trying to engineer for the last 2 years with interest rate hikes.
Exactly. Guattieri notes that this specific combination of factors raises the odds that the Fed will likely leave interest rates unchanged next month.
Okay.
So the retail drop isn't a disaster. It's the necessary friction that signals to the central bank that the economy is finally cooling to a manageable level.
Okay, so consumers are looking for the absolute cheapest way to spend their own money. And when you zoom out to a macro level, global businesses do the exact same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
They just do it on a massive international scale using shipping containers instead of shopping carts. The sources are calling this the Great Transshipment Scam.
Yeah, the White House has formally accused more than 40 countries of helping China dodge U.S. tariffs.
40 countries.
Yeah. We're talking about an estimated $60 billion in trade. Countries like Canada, Mexico, Japan, and members of the EU are allegedly acting as conduits to help Chinese goods skirt these higher U.S. tariffs.
So wait, explain the mechanism of transshipment to me. Because I can't just put a Made in Canada sticker over a Made in China stamp and expect customs to just wave me through, right?
Yeah.
How are they washing the origin of $60 billion worth of goods?
It requires a highly sophisticated logistical network. Instead of sending a product directly from China to the U.S. and paying the 25 or 50% tariff, the manufacturer routes the product through a third-party nation facing lower import duties.
Okay.
Sometimes the product undergoes a minimal assembly process in that third country, just enough to legally classify it as a product of Mexico or Vietnam under these extremely complex rules of origin. Yeah, Peter Navarro is quoted in the sources stating that China has spent years perfecting this system. He argues that this scam lets China launder its exports, rob the U.S. Treasury of tens of billions of dollars, and directly undercut American workers.
But realistically, the U.S. government is completely outgunned here, right? I mean, you can't put a customs agent inside all 40 million shipping containers moving around the globe to verify where a piece of steel was actually forged.
No, the sheer volume makes human oversight basically impossible, which is why the administration is deploying an AI-powered system called Detective Border.
Detective Border, that sounds like a sci-fi movie.
Right. But this AI is designed to ingest the massive, tangled web of global shipping data. It cross-references bills of lading, corporate registries, transit routes, all to identify the true origin of products so Customs and Border Protection can collect the proper tariffs.
See, tariffs are designed by politicians in Washington, but supply chains are designed by logistics experts whose entire job is finding the cheapest legal route from point A to point B. If you create a massive labyrinth of dozens of different tariff rates, you naturally create a billion-dollar financial incentive to find the loopholes. It's not a bug in the global trade system. It's literally the core business model.
Right. Businesses will always use whatever tools they have to navigate a maze of international rules.
But if multinational corporations are outsmarting international tariffs, what happens when the U.S. government outsmarts itself on its own soil?
Oh, the gun laws, yeah.
The recent legal developments in Texas show a system in complete regulatory limbo regarding federal firearms laws.
Yeah, a federal judge in Texas just struck down key National Firearms Act registration requirements.
Okay, break that down for us.
Sure. This ruling deemed the registration requirements for firearm suppressors, short-barreled rifles, and certain other weapons to be fundamentally unconstitutional.
I need to understand the constitutional mechanism here.
Right.
Why does a federal judge suddenly declare a registry that has been around since, 1934 unconstitutional today?
It hinges entirely on the mechanism of taxation. When the National Firearms Act was passed in 1934, the federal government used its taxing power to justify the regulation.
Okay.
They didn't ban these items outright. They slapped a massive tax on them and required registration to collect that tax. That tax was the jurisdictional hook that allowed the federal government to mandate the registry.
Got it.
But here's the catch. Congress recently eliminated that specific tax.
Wait, really?
Yep. So the judge ruled that without the underlying tax to justify the collection of revenue, the constitutional basis for the mandatory registration completely evaporates.
So the legal foundation just vanished.
Gone.
But the situation on the ground right now is utter absurdity. The Justice Department skipped its first chance to block the ruling. They didn't seek an emergency stay before the deadline, but they still have about 7 weeks to decide whether they're going to appeal it.
Right.
And because the ruling currently appears to apply only to the specific plaintiffs in the case groups like Gun Owners of America and their affiliated sellers, nobody knows who is actually allowed to do what.
It's a mess. The ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, has stated they will continue processing the paperwork, but they are flatly declining to interpret the court's decision.
Of course they are.
Yeah, they aren't providing any legal advice to gun owners or dealers in the meantime.
It's honestly like a referee changing the rules of the game while the ball is in midair. But the ATF is standing on the sidelines, refusing to tell the players what a foul is.
That's a perfect analogy.
You have citizens and businesses who genuinely want to comply with the law, but the government cannot clearly articulate what the law is today. CNN actually quoted one gun rights advocate calling the situation utter chaos and a confused mess.
And the stakes are incredibly high, making this a massive political flashpoint. Gun rights groups are aggressively urging the administration to let this ruling stand, which would fundamentally alter firearm ownership rules in the United States.
Right, and on the other side.
Conversely, gun control advocates are warning that nearly a century of federal safeguards is being dismantled overnight due to a technicality regarding tax law.
Wow.
So until the Justice Department formally files an appeal, or higher courts weigh in to freeze the ruling, the legal landscape is entirely unsettled.
Unbelievable. Well, the legal foundation might be crumbling in plain sight, but the literal foundation of the government is being massively reinforced just out of view.
Oh, this is a crazy pivot.
Let's shift from legal infrastructure to physical infrastructure. According to a report from Axios, President Trump's White House ballroom project has ballooned from a $200 million proposal into a $600 million undertaking.
And taxpayers are footing half the bill.
Yep.
But the ballroom itself is just the surface story. The real driver of the cost and the bulk of the construction is an underground security complex being built beneath the White House lawn.
Underneath it.
Yeah. We are looking at a 6-story deep complex designed to replace or significantly expand the aging Presidential Emergency Operations Center.
6 stories deep. The details in the planning documents read like a movie script. It includes bomb shelters, full medical facilities, a drone-proof roof, and a dedicated drone port.
It's tense.
It's literally military-grade infrastructure designed to protect the executive branch from modern, unprecedented threats. And that $600 million is just the beginning.
Right, there's more.
The administration is also planning another $300 million for campus upgrades, including a new helipad and visitor screening center, plus a separate request for up to $1 billion in additional security improvements.
And the legal battle surrounding the construction is just as complex as the engineering. The entire project is currently tied up in court. A federal appeals court recently ruled that congressional approval is required before this massive construction can move forward. So the administration is actively planning to ask the Supreme Court to reverse that decision, arguing that these security upgrades are a matter of absolute national security and shouldn't be delayed by congressional gridlock.
Well, a 6-story hole in the ground is a massive secret to keep. Structurally, you really can't hide it. But as we look at our final source today, we see that the most damaging things buried by our institutions aren't physical command centers.
No, they're not.
They are pieces of paper. They are ignored warnings.
The raw facts of the ongoing lawsuit involving the FBI and the Jeffrey Epstein case are deeply, deeply troubling.
Yeah.
According to a report from Raw Story, newly filed court documents in a federal lawsuit brought by 34 Epstein survivors allege that Hugh Hefner actually alerted the FBI about Jeffrey Epstein way back in 2005.
The mechanics of how this tip supposedly happened are crucial here. The complaint alleges that former Playboy playmate Audra Christensen told Hugh Hefner she'd been sexually abused and trafficked by Epstein.
Right.
And she allegedly asked Hefner to contact the FBI on her behalf, operating under the assumption that federal authorities would take a phone call from a high-profile celebrity far more seriously than a call from her.
And according to the lawsuit, the FBI received the tip and agreed to assist and investigate her allegations. But the complaint claims she didn't hear from the Bureau again until October 2020.
October 2020, that is a 15-year gap.
A 15-year gap. The plaintiffs argued that the FBI fundamentally failed to follow its own internal policies for investigating child sexual abuse and sex trafficking claims.
You know, the media is going to focus heavily on Hugh Hefner's name being involved in this document.
Oh, absolutely.
But the real story here is the timeline. The real tragedy isn't a lack of tips. It is a 15-year void after a tip was received and acknowledged.
It's devastating.
If these allegations hold up in court, it means the system didn't fail to collect the information. The system froze. And during that decade and a half of silence, additional victims were allegedly allowed to be harmed.
Yeah. The plaintiffs are seeking accountability over how the FBI handled these early reports. And it is vital to state that these are currently allegations as part of an ongoing lawsuit.
Right.
They haven't yet been proven in court, and the Justice Department has not been found liable. But the core questions remain. Who knew what and when?
Exactly.
And what is the internal mechanism that allows a credible tip regarding international trafficking to just sit in a filing cabinet for 15 years without action?
When you look at all of the sources we've unpacked today, a really unsettling pattern emerges. Whether it's $121 billion in paper tech profits masking core business realities,
or supply chains using 40 different countries to wash the origin of $60 billion in goods.
Or the ATF standing paralyzed over a missing tax law, a 6-story Cold War bunker hiding under a ballroom, or a 15-year silence from the FBI. The surface narrative is almost never the whole story.
Never. The systems that govern our financial, legal, and physical lives are intentionally complex, they're designed by experts, and they're often structured in a way that completely obscures their true function from the general public.
Which is exactly why this matters to you listening. Being well-informed doesn't just mean reading the headlines or memorizing the stats.
Yeah.
It means constantly asking what underlying mechanism is actually driving those numbers and those laws.
You really always have to look for the asterisk.
Always. I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something we didn't explicitly touch on, but is lingering right beneath the surface of all this. Think back to that global trade segment.
Okay.
Multinational supply chains are using incredibly complex algorithmic logistics to hide $60 billion in trade routes.
Right.
And in response, the Border Patrol is deploying this detective border AI to try and untangle that web.
It basically becomes an arms race of processing power.
Exactly. Now, if big tech is also using complex, opaque financial structures to mask their true profits from the markets, are we entering an era where human oversight is essentially obsolete?
Oh, that's a chilling thought.
Are we moving toward a future where our economy, our trade laws, and our tax codes are just going to be algorithms fighting other algorithms, endlessly trying to find and close loopholes at the speed of light?
Honestly, when the mechanisms become too complex for a human being to audit, we really have to ask ourselves, who is actually running the machine?
It makes you wonder what the label on the box is even going to look like in 10 years. Thank you for joining us as we unpacked all of this. Keep questioning the surface story and keep digging beneath the surface. We'll see you next time.
Until next time, take care.